Deep in the heart of the wilderness, strange things have happened. People have vanished without a trace, leaving behind nothing but unanswered questions and a haunting sense of mystery. What happened to them? Were they lost, or did something more sinister occur? Join us as we explore the tales of those who disappeared into the wilderness and the secrets that may lie buried in the great unknown. Jared Negrete's mysterious disappearance from Mount San Gorgonio. Jared Michael Negrete was a 12-year-old Boy Scout on his first overnight hiking trip. He disappeared on Friday, July 19, 1991 at around 6 o'clock after getting separated from his fellow scouts while climbing the 11,500-foot Mount San Gorgonio in Southern California's San Bernardino National Forest. Only some candy wrappers and a camera with a terrifying image of Jared were found after a thorough search. Despite a huge search and follow-up walks into the region by amateur investigators 30 years later, no remains have been discovered. Many people question why a scout leader would abandon Jared on his first journey while the other scouts complete their walk. The highest peak in Southern California in the Traverse Range is San Gorgonio Mountain, also referred to as Mount San Gorgonio or Old Grayback locally. Its elevation is 11,503 feet. It's located in the San Bernardino Mountains, 27 miles east of San Bernardino. The San Gorgonio Wilderness is a part of the Santa Snow National Monument, which is maintained by the San Bernardino National Forest. Jared Negrete, a 12-year-old Hispanic boy from El Monte in Los Angeles County, California, was an 8th grader. He was 5 feet 2 inches tall, weighed 150 pounds, and had black hair and brown eyes. He was wearing a Boy Scout-inspired tan t-shirt, green Boy Scout-style pants, and a pair of black high-top Pro Wing sneakers. He wore spectacles with brown plastic frames and had a little birthmark on his right cheek. He was holding a 2-quart water canteen. Jared was on a scout troop excursion to a place near the peak of San Gorgonio Mountain, in the San Bernardino National Forest in Southern California on Friday, July 19, 1991. The group consisted of a commander and 6 scouts. Jared fell behind his fellow scouts on the walk to the peak. At 6 p.m., another hiker saw Jared trailing behind and alerted the scout troop commander at the peak. He was observed shortcutting the switchbacks on his way down the route and was instructed not to do so and to remain on the track, according to witnesses. Cutting across the switchback is bad trail etiquette because it kills vegetation, loosens the soil, and creates a new path that runs straight up and down the slope, eventually growing enormous and hollowed out from erosion. But the scout leader, an experienced hiker, said that he would meet Jared on the way down. When the leader was eventually able to descend the mountain to meet Jared, he was nowhere to be seen. When the troop commander noticed Jared had gone missing, he returned to the base camp with his 5 other scouts and then trekked almost 5 kilometers in the dark to obtain aid. A 130 square mile section of the rocky, wooded San Gorgonio wilderness was the subject of an investigation by San Bernardino County sheriffs, deputies, and search and rescue teams as far away as the Sierra Madre and San Dimas. By 3 days, their search was narrowed to a 6 square mile region where a footprint matching one of Jared's high-top tennis shoes was discovered. Along with his camera, the searchers discovered beef jerky and candy wrappers that were allegedly dropped by the scout. There were 12 photographs on the film roll. The majority of the images were landscape shot before Jared went missing. The last image on the roll of film, however, was a shot of the scout's eyes and nose, taken with the camera's flash, presumably at night after he had vanished. Family members said that Jared seemed to hold the camera up to his face and take the picture. It seemed that the child had dropped the camera while sliding down a section of the slope. At least 70 cops were dispatched, some of whom were carried into the forest by helicopter, as well as horseback riders and infrared helicopters. Up to 3,000 people searched 50 square miles of the San Bernardino National Forest over the course of the next 2 weeks. From Angeles Oaks to Whitewater Canyon, it was concluded that a blue water bottle that had been found during the search had not belonged to Jared and had likely been carried down the mountain by flash floods. The temperatures were high enough for Jared to live on the mountains alone for a few days, and there was adequate water in the vicinity, as well as the bottle he was carrying. He seemed to have a limited supply of food with him. There were no further clues discovered, and Jared had disappeared indefinitely. Despite the finding of the camera and its images, Jared remains unaccounted for 3 whole decades later as of 2021. So what occurred on that July day in 1991? It was only a few years ago that I realized what a waste of time alarm clocks were. To prevent anybody being left behind, the slowest hikers are usually placed in the center of the group. Leaving a scout on his first trip to wait for the others to complete their climb would be regarded as dangerous, if not irresponsible, today. Did he lose his footing and slide down the mountain? On his way down the path, he was observed avoiding the switchbacks. Yet, despite the exhaustive search, nothing was discovered. Was Jared hidden by the dense forest and tough terrain? There are several sheer rock cliffs along the routes in that location that lead to impenetrable manzanita fields, as well as precipitous drop-offs. He was presumably bored of waiting for the other scouts to return and chose to trek down the mountain route by himself. It seems that Jared fell and was seriously hurt or died as a result of his injuries. If he deviated off the main track, he is more likely to get lost and perished. But another question is, was he kidnapped or murdered? There's no sign of foul play, but the mountain route is regularly trafficked. So it is possible that a predator observed Jared alone and took advantage. Is it feasible, however, that a pedophile might have attacked without drawing the notice of the other hikers in the area? Was he killed by a black bear or other wildlife? It's inconceivable that black bears would attack people, although this is uncommon because there are cougars in this region. There was no blood, drag marks, or other indications of an animal assault. So much being left up in the air makes this case truly undecipherable. Next, we'll discuss the disappearance of Dennis Martin. In June 1969, Dennis Martin was 6 years old. They went on a Father's Day weekend hike along the Tennessee-North Carolina line, as is their custom. His father, William Martin, his grandfather, Clyde, and the two sons set off from Cades Cove on a hike to Russell Field, where they set up camp for the night. They then traveled to Spence Field, where they encountered another family with young sons who were both named Martin. The boys were having a good time together as the afternoon wore on. He and his brother, along with two boys they had just met, plotted a prank on the adults who were relaxing in the Spence Field area located along the Appalachian Trail. The boys weren't particularly cunning in their prank. To sneak up on the adults while hiding behind them was the plan. But the adults were aware of what the boys were doing. A pincer motion was underway. They saw as three of the boys used a particular route to return covertly through the forest. They observed Dennis, a 6-year-old, sneaking away in the opposite direction and appeared to vanish from the planet. The three boys played their joke on each other with excellent humor. William stood up to look for Dennis after he failed to emerge from a different angle. In spite of the fact that he had only been out of sight for a few minutes, William's search rapidly became frenzied. In the hopes that the boy had turned around and gone in the wrong direction, the father hurried back up the route toward Russell Field. The others searched the region. After 9 o'clock in the evening, Clyde eventually hiked out to the park ranger station. By that time, a sizable storm had rolled in, dumping copious amounts of rain on the mountains and bringing overnight lows into the 50s. The search was hampered the following day by 2.5 inches of rain and thick fog. An enormous response grew as word of the missing kids circulated. The search party expanded over the coming weeks to an unwieldy and ineffective size. Boy Scouts, members of the National Guard, numerous rescue teams, and even 71 Green Berets, who had been engaged in training exercises in the western North Carolina, came to look for the boy. Helicopters also showed up. Any clue or scent that persisted after the heavy rain was quickly lost due to the large amount of searchers and volunteers trampling over the wet and muddy ground. That week, Denny turned 7 as searchers gave it their all, but to no avail. Boy-sized prints showed someone with one foot in an Oxford shoe, as Denny did, and the other foot bare. Searchers were dubious because the area had previously been searched by Boy Scouts, who might have left the prints, but family members claimed the footprints were too large to belong to Denny. Additionally, a single rock-and shoe was discovered, but it's not clear if the shoe was the appropriate style or size, or if the foot it belonged to matched the footprints. In essence, those were the only clues. The largest search in the park's history was conducted in an effort to find Dennis. He vanished when he was 6 years old, and it's likely that he was never seen again. A few miles away from the location where Dennis vanished, a family from Carthage, Tennessee, was in the mountains that day searching for animals at Cades Cove. Without ever learning about the search or the missing child, they left. When Harold Key, the father, learned about the search some weeks later, he called the authorities and claimed hearing a scream and saw a figure sprinting through the woods. At the time, news accounts claimed that Key's son mistook the apparition for a bear. They discovered afterwards that it was a disheveled man hidden in the underbush. Key was cited as saying at the same time he was clearly avoiding us. Due to the distance and hazy timeline Key supplied, officials disregarded the connection. It was almost impossible to imagine how the child might have been abducted and taken to that location, but a lot of people have interpreted this alleged sighting, along with several internet-based embellishments, as proof that Dennis was hauled off the mountain. According to reports, Dennis's father thought the boy had been abducted. A reward for his safe return was once put forth. But alas, no developments were made. That concludes our journey into this unknown, where the wilderness swallowed those who dared to venture too far. These stories are a reminder that sometimes the greatest mysteries lie in the vast expanse of nature, and that we should always respect its power. Thank you for joining us on this adventure, and if you have any information on any of the cases we explored today, however unlikely it may be, please reach out. Who knows, your tip may be the key to unlocking a long-lost mystery. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.